Okay, we got a 4T65E. I could have sworn I'd done a teardown of this, but apparently I have not. So this one here's come in with the code of P1811, which is pretty common. Max adapt shifts, a long shift. Take your lockup O-ring off. Also has a code I have not had before, a P1819, which is a internal mode switch, not valid signal. Have a feeling it may have been a shifter grommet, but we're going to go ahead and put an internal mode switch in it. 13 millimeters on our housing here. Depending on what you have as to how this would be taken apart. The all-wheel drive version of it is totally different as far as what you're going to do back here. Normally the all-wheel drive version is blown to smithereens in the final drive section. They have bad problems with the shims in there. Just don't consider this as a teardown for that, because it's totally different. You can take this as a teardown for everything else. The rest of the unit will be the same, but the final drive is going to be different. So take your housing off. This bushing that's always in here is always bad. Always replace it. On a Volvo, it's going to be a bearing, so it'll be a little bit different right here. This bearing and shim is going to be different. The final drive is going to be different, but it comes apart the same way. So this is going to work for your Volvos too. Get your shaft to where the snap ring is poked back up inside there. As long as it's started back up in there, it should be okay. Get you a pry bar and a hammer and just get right in there, and if it's not going to go, then your snap ring's not lined up right. So just get in between there and push that out. Make sure you don't have too much play here on your pinions. Depending on what ratio you have as to whether this bearing right here will come out or not. This one's going to stay. Oh, there it goes. I'm going to take it out. Make sure sun gear is not all pitted up. These are bad about pitting. So make sure everything's okay on your teeth. Make sure where that bushing rides is not all eat up. Normally the spider gears are in good shape. They do go bad, so do take a look at them. Pull your shaft back out. Get you a pair of snap ring pliers and go ahead and take this snap ring off. Depending on what year you have as to how this bearing will be right here. This is the late version, so it's a much better version. They updated the shaft, this part gear, the bearing. Make sure your bearing's okay. Go ahead and pull your shaft out. There's a top hat washer in there. It's plastic. You got to get through it. You might want to make note of everything on this tag. This tag will tell you everything that you need to know. You don't want to wash this thing and then this wash off. That's normally what happens. This has all the information that you need as far as gear ratio, build date, update package that's in the transmission. This cover's normally not worn out, but do take a look at it. This band that's on this servo is almost always broken. If it's not broken, replace it anyway. Sonex making a new pin for this, so we'll be putting a pin in there. This is under a fair amount of pressure, so do be careful when you take it out. Don't stick your face over the top of it. And of course this one's not going to come out. Get a little bit of PB blast on the situation. Usually it just comes popping right out of there. Make sure springs aren't broke. Make note of where your studs are. They are in different positions, different cars. Normally they are in the positions they are right here. 2 up here, 1 in between on the side. $13mm here. There's 4 40 torques on the bottom. A lot of times they're packed in with dirt, so you might need to blow out the center of it. Alright, this is a molded gasket here. You're going to want to replace it. It is not going to come in the kit. And that's normally what happens. It rips apart. Okay, depending on what year you have as to what bolt you're going to have. Our wiring harness is super brittle, so we're going to be putting a wiring harness on this. All this is going to break when we take it apart. So we're going to need a harness for this. Like I said, depending on what year you have, what bolts you're going to have. This is real late model, so that's 13s there. There's an E12, or yeah, E2, I think. Inverted torques right there. The early style had a 2-piece pump. This is a 3-piece. I've never seen the 3-piece bed. 10mm here. The earlier ones were a little bit more prone to it. You can take this apart if you want to. I just look up inside of here and I see if it's worn out. You can see it if it is. And normally they're not. So I just leave it together. And you're gonna want a pretty good socket on these 310s right here. They're normally pretty stout in there. If it's not starting to come out, you might want to get an impact driver and loosen them up, because they will round off on you. Alright, 8 millimeters here. .30 Torx on here. Now the 3-piece pump goes with the single pressure switch manifold, and goes with the Bosch style EPC. The 2-piece goes with the great big EPC, and the 4 pressure switch over here, 3 or 4, the bigger pressure switch. So the valve body is different, all that's different. The way the pump is done, as far as on here, on the inside, it's all totally different and will not swap out. Alright, channel separator plate. Make sure that where the balls seat is not all beat out. Sometimes you can repair it, other times you're going to need to replace this. We'll come back to the valve body in a little bit. We got a dowel pin that goes right here. Get all of our check balls here. Make sure on your pump shaft that the splines aren't all about to strip out. Millimeter, 10 millimeter. Yeah, we got us a check ball hanging out up here. Alright, channel plate should come off. Can't forget a bolt. Oh yeah. Got another 30 Torx. Is that about right off in here? Alright, I leave my manual link attached, and I just lift it up and unhook it there. You can unhook it here by pulling the spring back, and then it'll pop off. I just usually leave it attached. There are different channel plates according to what you have. There'll be different setups here as far as these check valves go. Volvo 4th gear clutches are going to be different. They're going to be single-sided. This is where a lot of wear occurs right here. Check your springs. But the big wear is right here on this pin. And this accumulator. Okay, that's getting to be a bit excessive right there. Usually all these accumulators and their pins are worn out. So if you have any doubt at all about whether your accumulator is worn out, replace it. Alright, another area of big wear, and this one is worn out, is right here where the ring lands right into here. It'll chew this up. So it's going to need a sleeve. Another big area for wear is this valve. Supplier makes a valve for it, so we'll be putting that in. It's KO 98. Check your washers real close. These pins right here are riveted in. If they are loose at all, you're going to want to replace this rotor, and be careful you don't bend this. The chain's always worn out. Look how much slop is there. I very rarely do not put a chain in these, and it's a double chain, so you'll be putting two. It comes as two pieces. Make sure your washers, see, your washers are getting pretty worn out right there. So it's going to get a washer kit. Almost always the washers are worn out. Be mindful where this bushing rides. This bushing here and that bushing in the tail housing always are worn out. Always replace them, even if they look somewhat okay. Just go ahead and replace them. Here, oil troughs. So our chain is going to get replaced. Usually these washers right here are getting pretty hot and they'll start breaking. The one on the back side here is always worn out. Different tooth counts on your sprockets, so don't go mixing that up. Take a real good look at this bearing right here where it rides on this. When that sleeve is ring cut, you're going to want to replace the bushing that goes inside here also. I think we can salvage the sprocket itself. Alright, pop our snap ring out here. Take our piston out. Make sure we're not ring cutting here. Normally they are not. Okay, this washer here, see how the coating, these are Teflon coated, and the coatings come off. So it definitely needs to be replaced. Alright, to get rid of your 1811 Max Adapt shift, this is where you're gonna take care of it with the KO98 kit. The valve body kit helps, but the big thing is this clearance in this drum. Alright, depending on what year you have is whether you have diode sprags here or not. The clutches and the sprags are different, so you can swap the sprags out, but you have to swap the clutches to match them. Alright, your reverse band is usually okay. Every once in a while it's bad. Let's talk about these clutches here. Let's get down into here and keep from bumping the camera. This set of clutches here is normally not got too much slop in it. It's this set of clutches right here, and look how much slop is in there. Alright, so the way we take care of this one here, these are single-sided clutches in here. They're going to get replaced. So what you need to do is keep one of these clutches right here, and you're going to shave the lining off of it. This is going to become an extra steel, and we're going to place that on top of the cushion plate, and then we're going to do our normal stack up. This will come out perfect. It'll have very little play at all. That's what you want. We're going to get rid of all that play in that drum. That's the first big place that's going to help. Go ahead and pop the snap or this bearing out of here. Take our pistons out. You can actually do this without going to the press. You can actually put this transmission together if you got strong enough fingers without a press. Pistons are always worn out, so just plan on replacing them, especially the second piston. Okay, depending on what year you have is how the piston is set up. This piston here is real bad about wear on the inside here. This one's actually pretty good, but you can physically see it. I mean, you don't have to go searching for it. It's going to be obvious when it's worn out. Alright, like I say, that bushing always gets replaced. Our selective shim is up inside here, and we got our bearing here. Okay, big place of wear. If you look right here, you can see how this is getting worn out. And this actually should have had the updated planet already in it, but apparently it does not. So the 25-degree planet is real bad about this wear. And not planet, 25-degree on this drum. You can see how it's all worn out right there. This is going to need to be replaced. Both of these are. And we're going to go with the 10-degree, and it'll keep that from happening. The other area of bad wear is these clutches wear real bad, but it's also already sloppy like the third clutches there. So we're going to put an extra steel in this drum. And depending on what these steels look like, we may need to order just an extra one or have to order all of them. These usually are getting worn down to the metal. Alright, these don't look that bad, so we can just order one extra steel and we'll be okay. I'll just push this snap ring off. And we'll show you how loose the piston normally is. It's amazing how when you put something on camera it never works like it normally does. Okay, this one's wanting to be a pain, so I'm going to go to the foot press. I don't know why it wants to be difficult. Alright, sometimes this piston will just fall right out of there, but it's very loose in there. You can feel it when you go to try to move it. Always replace this piston. Alright, we have the other sprag. These sun gears are real bad about pitting. And this one's starting to pit, so it's going to get a sun gear. This one's going to need a fair amount of parts. Hopefully they're going to want to fix it. These can get quite expensive very fast. Look at your pinions and make sure they're not pitting. Your bearing in here is in good shape. No wobbling around. Alright, our top hat washer is gone. There should be a lip on each side. Bearing here. Same thing for this. This one's worn out. We might be able to quick shim that. That's way too much play. We'll see if they even want to fix this thing. Alright, make sure your surface here where your band rides is in good shape. I think this thing needs a whole bushing kit. It's getting pretty worn out. Alright, when the front band, the forward band breaks, this band will burn. Alright, we'll make sure our sprag is still holding. Turns one way, locks the other. I just leave this bearing and the sprag on here. There's no need to take it off. The bushing's pretty worn out also. Alright, this band will break right here. I'll snap it off right here. And this band looks in real good shape. You would think reuse it. Do not reuse it. Up inside of here is usually, depending on what year you have, the update is this bearing. You can back service this all the way. The early one was a washer. I'll leave the support in there unless the final drive has been wiped out. I just wash it with it in there. Okay, get you a pair of vice grips and get around this nail that's in here. Get you a pry bar. Pop that nail out. This is our internal mode switch, so we're going to go ahead and replace it. I would be taking this out anyway because you want to look at this right here. This end of this, see how it's starting to mushroom out? Replace this now because it will finish mushrooming out and this will come off and it'll stay stuck in park. Very common for that to happen. 10 millimeters on the pan. Somebody's been into this because this has supposed to have a reusable pan gasket. Somebody's thrown it away. These 3 bolts are just like those others on the channel plate. These are very prone to rounding off. 8 millimeters here. Okay, depending on what year and what car you have as to how this will be set up inside of here. So you definitely want to mark these. There's an E-clip here, you take that off. I set my E-clip off to the side so I don't lose it. And you're going to want to check these springs that are up inside of here. Make sure that they are not broken. I'll leave the tube in there. Do check this rubber here. Especially when you get water in them, it'll deteriorate and will need to be replaced. So go ahead and pick one of them, mark it so you know where it goes, and then keep the springs with it. See, this is severely worn out. almost always worn out. Oh, that one's really bad. Okay, let me go write this one up, and we'll come back. You do want to be careful that you do not lose this thermal valve that's down on the side of here. I always leave it on there, but it does fall out, so you want to be careful and not lose this thing. These pins sit at a certain height, and this thing bends when it gets hot and allows fluid in and out, so this thing needs to work properly. Okay, we got a fair amount of damage here. I don't know if we're gonna get to do this one or not. LS kit with pistons, filter, bushing kit, the Supplier K4T65E kit, KO98 kit, top hat washer, washer kit, chain, channel plate sleeve, all three accumulators and their pins, forward band, the planet sun gear, the rear planet, the second gear drum, 10 degree, and the sun gear drum to reverse sun gear drum to go with it, 10 degree, extra second steel internal mode switch, internal wiring harness, parking pawl rod. My code on my torque converter is an FLQB. You want to make sure that you get all that the same. You don't want to go changing out the stall speed on your converter or changing out sprockets at final drives with the wrong gears, because you'll start getting ratio codes, you start getting max adapt long shifts that it can't fix, you'll start getting lockup codes, you'll get all kinds of problems that you don't want to deal with, so make sure everything gets matched up. Okay, we already got several rebuild videos on this transmission, so there won't be a rebuild of this transmission, but now you see how it's taken apart, all except for the all-wheel drive. The way the final drive is taken apart is different. The rest of it's the same. Oh, one thing I was going to mention, and it's fairly common, what you want to do is you're gonna get a spring to put in this sleeve right here. You can also put the spring that goes in over here if you want to put it in. I usually don't do it unless it's like an SS model, but I'd leave that one alone. But you're going to want to take this sleeve out. You're going to want to do it before you wash it. You pop that clip out right there, get you a pair of vice grips that you can clamp on the end of it out here, and you want to pull this out smoothly and cleanly in one fell swoop. If it starts hanging up on you, then stop. But you want this thing to pull out. Once you pull this thing out, get you a small brake hone and hone this out, and fine sandpaper on the valve sleeve right here. This sleeve is different between the Volvo and the Chevy. They do make a sleeve for it. Keep in mind it is different, the valve body is different, so make sure that you don't go swapping the Volvo out with the Chevy. All that stuff's different, so the kit's even different. So make sure that when you get your kit, you get a kit for a Volvo if you're doing a Volvo, because the front seal's different, the filler tube's different, fourth gear clutches. There's a bunch of stuff that's different between the Volvo and the GM, so make sure you match all that stuff up also.